guys, it's Quincy with Coin Club Crypto. Welcome to my channel. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and talk about it with your friends if you like what to talk about. Now, today I'm going to be talking about something quite interesting. So something that I see a lot is people sort of going like, oh, what's the value of blockchain? Like, isn't it like a database? I don't understand. Like, why do I need to tokenize these things? Like, I've seen, the same feature in this application I was using earlier. Why does it bring any value? And I think one of the biggest things is people don't really see the applications that they typically deal with. They don't see the back-end structures to how they work. And those applications are actually perfectly intended to be built in such a manner to be as user-friendly as possible. So you're not meant to see all these different things and different pains that go into running the application. Well, one of the things I wanted to really break down was, well, what goes into running a traditional application, period? How does an application developer, pay for their application? How do they scale their application? And how do they essentially make money off of people engaging with their application versus that same developer creating a similar application on a blockchain? And the thing is like I said, I hear this all the time. They go, what about this feature? I've heard this feature being, prevalent in this application that I'm already using, and it doesn't have blockchain. What about this feature? What about that? And just in a general kind of a gist, before I even get into the details, what blockchain really is doing is it's helping it become more scalable. It's helping the application become more scalable, helping the application become easier to manage, and helping the application essentially become more profitable in regards to how people use the application. Now, two things that end up being really big in regards to the difference between a traditional application and a blockchain application is the user experience with the application is going to be fundamentally different. So if you were going to build a traditional application in the cloud, for instance, well, you would set up your servers, and then you would set up your databases, and then you have your databases communicating with your servers, and then you would have a segment of different servers around the different regions that you want to host this application, or different countries or continents that you want to hold this application. Then you need to make sure that you're able to maintain those different servers and the scalabilities of those servers, because you don't want those servers to go down or those databases to go down. So in order to be scalable and highly available, you need to make sure you have more servers than you actually need, on top of being able to have more databases than you actually need to be able to make sure that you constantly maintain the load. And then after all of that, if you're managing in the cloud, like something like AWS or Google Cloud, you essentially end up getting billed at the end of the month for the resources that you're using for your application. Now, after all of that, you sort of have this general idea of how much it costs to run your business, and now you can start charging, or at the very least start adjusting your prices for your users to engage with your application. And typically with an online application, people either pay for subscriptions, licenses, or they just pay for things as they engage with them based on whatever that thing may be. But it's typically some sort of a subscription fee that they usually end up paying at the end of the month, typically based off of whatever their engagement may be. Now, where this differs in blockchain is with that traditional application, the user basically pays whatever fee structure that the application developer put forth. And that fee structure is going to be based off of all of that infrastructure put in to host the application, period. Now, obviously, that comes into, that person putting in investment and putting up capital and putting this whole little enterprise in order for people to engage with it. But they had to do all of that just for that application to be profitable in any regard and to continue moving forward. With blockchain applications, users pay the application as they use the executions. And there are different ways they can go about this. They can either pay for every execution, or they could pre-fund certain contracts that will make executions over time. But this fundamental change, and this really just comes down to how the idea of value is transferred on the network with different types of automation tools like smart contracts. But this fundamental thing almost changes the context of which how people would engage with the application, because in a traditional setting, you just pay at the end of the month, and essentially that risk of having to balance however many users to the profitability application is on the developer. Well, as the users are engaging and paying for the application as they use it, well, what ends up happening on blockchain is you're able to essentially divide the profits off of the overall application use, and essentially split those profits off into essentially being the profits for the application developer. And what ends up being great is because these applications will run on the blockchain, these are decentralized as a whole. Instead of having to build out all of those servers and databases and scale them and manage them and do all that you'd have to do, well, the network itself is already a decentralized computational unit with a accessibility to to data. So it's really crazy to think about, but it's sort of both a server to process information and a database to recall information. And that's the thing, in the traditional world, these are two separate things typically. Usually it's just too much processing power to put them on the same server, so they're usually two separate servers. The entire network is literally both in one. So what ends up happening is, instead of you having to scale your servers worldwide, well, what ends up happening is the user accesses the nearest node to, any local node or any available node that they can publicly access, make their transaction to that node, and that node will essentially broadcast that transaction to the rest of the network. And what ends up happening is, instead of me having to worry about, I need this many servers in America and this many servers in Europe and this many servers in Asia and Japan, I can essentially just build my application and launch it directly on these blockchains. And these blockchains will essentially scale the application for me. Now, this means different things to different people. Usually people, when they hear scale, they're like, oh, what's the throughput of it? Or, what are the fee costs? And this can mean a lot of different things. But one of the biggest things I'm talking about scaling is the ability to support a large influx of users in a small amount of time, on top of being able to support the other things I've stated before. And one thing that you've always got to remember is different blockchains have different performance stats. So one thing I usually like to go into is like XDC, for instance, that can support these performance stats, where something like Ethereum may not be able to support these performance stats. And that's another thing that really gets into how we look into these technologies. One thing that when we look at these traditional technologies, it's easy to say, oh, that's cloud technology because I save my data there, I access the application there, it's easy to engage with. Blockchain, because they're so dynamic in their feature sets, it becomes, well, yeah, we get the idea that you can engage with applications and engage with data, but because each blockchain has a different mechanism of being able to engage with their features, their data, their applications, and they have different specialities for them, it's not so obvious to grasp what makes these so special, as opposed to just a unique application that was built in Google Cloud or AWS. But the main thing with the blockchain application is, because the application is already decentralized, it will essentially be able to scale worldwide for any user that wants to be able to use it based off of their ability to pay for it for that execution. And that's the thing, because I don't have to sit there and build up all this back end, I could sit back, relax, and let people use the application. Where over here, I would essentially be managing thousands upon thousands of servers and databases every day, making sure that people have easy access to their applications. And that's the thing, that's really one of the fundamental values of the technology as a whole. Never mind the token values and tokenomics and individual features. This is what the fundamental value is to be able to build I don't even say already established, but to be able to take applications that could exist in one form and have them exist more efficiently in another form. And that's basically what I got for you guys. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.